Ja, herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Ausgabe vom SI-Talk. Heute was ganz Spezielles. Ich habe zwei Gäste dabei, Interviewpartner. Sie kennen ja das schon von meinen anderen Interviews und heute haben wir eine ganz spannende Sache, weil es eigentlich wieder was Neues ist. Und zwar, wir haben Canarc, oder sagen wir, beginnen wir so, Canarc kennen die meisten Leute schon, weil das gehört auch zur Gruppe von Endeavour Silver, Bradford Cook ist bekannt. Und Canarc war die erste Company, die er eigentlich gegründet hat. Und die sind jetzt eigentlich auf der Suche nach neuen Projekten. So, jetzt ist eigentlich so gewesen, dass die eigentlich ein Unternehmen bereits über den Merger angekündigt haben. Das haben sie aber dann gekündigt, weil es nicht gepasst hat. Und jetzt sind sie dabei, eigentlich eine neue Firma zu übernehmen, beziehungsweise nicht ganz zu übernehmen, weil das Unternehmen nämlich einen sehr hohen Verlustvortrag hat und diesen Verlustvortrag wollen sie geltend machen. Und das ist so wie bei uns auch, wenn Sie einen Verlustvortrag haben und Sie übernehmen die Company und machen sozusagen Change of Control, wie es so schön heißt in Englischen, dann verlieren Sie diesen Verlustvertrag. Und da geht es immerhin um 80 Millionen und das will natürlich die Company vermeiden, aber de facto ist hier eine Übernahme passiert und deswegen freut es mich vor allem, dass wir heute den CEO und Präsidenten da haben, der uns eigentlich genau die Struktur erklärt, um was Sie das Unternehmen eigentlich machen wollen. Neben den CEO und Präsidenten haben wir auch noch Michael Adams, der so ein bisschen ausschaut wie im Gefängnis. Ist es nicht, er sitzt nur im Keller. Ich habe mich schon ein bisschen raufgearbeitet, ich habe schon fast ein Fenster. Er sitzt halt noch ein bisschen im Keller, aber das wird schon noch kommen.
Ich könnte ja mal erzählen, was das für ein Fenster ist, Joe, aber okay.
Ich habe tatsächlich ein Fenster. Sieht man nicht jetzt aber im Bild, aber ich habe tatsächlich ein Fenster bei mir da. So. Aber da sind wir auch schon mittendrin. Und deswegen, wir switchen jetzt wieder zu Englisch. Und Hauptredner ist heute eigentlich Michael und ich bin eigentlich nur da, um blöde Fragen zu stellen. Aber das kennen Sie ja auch schon. Und ja, deswegen freut es mich. Und jetzt gebe ich rüber zu Michael, der jetzt einmal richtig loslegen kann.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. This is a special event, kind of a joint venture between Joe Brunner's Smallcap-Investor video talk, my newsletter stocktelegraph.com TV, and my international or the international edition of stocktelegraph.com. And as a guest today, we have Catalin from. Catalin, I'm sorry, I can never pronounce your last name. Can you help me out?
No problem. It's Chiloflischi, Catalin Chiloflischi.
Chiloflischi.
No wonder it's a difficult one.
Right, I'm so sorry. I know you for years,
No
but
problem.
I never made it. Anyways,
No problem.
so we have a joint venture on the newsletter side, and there's kind of a transaction going on between Santa Fe Gold and Canarc, and this is why I have asked Catalin to give us some insight, because I read the news releases and I partly listened to the conference call which you guys hosted. Still, it was very, very complicated. So I would like you to start to give us maybe some background on yourself, and
Sure.
then tell us about the transaction. My main contact to you was with Canarc, and you were looking for to acquire some projects for quite some time. You had some projects which you investigated, but you ended up now with a transaction with Santa Fe Gold. So the stage is yours right now.
Thank you so much, Michael, and thank you so much, Joe. It's a pleasure to be part of your show here, and a pleasure to provide an update to investors throughout the world that you subscribe to your newsletter. Let me start with the beginning. I think it's very important to give people an idea of who's really behind the company and why are we doing this and how we are going to benefit our shareholders. So the beginning is really starting with a gentleman called Bradford Cook, who is also the founder and the chairman of Canarc Resource, but also the founder and CEO of Endeavour Silver. And I mention Endeavour Silver because Endeavour is really a very successful company. It's a company that was started by Brad 10 years ago from really nothing and achieved tremendous success. Their market cap today, just for people that are listening, it's in the range of $600 to $700 million, and not long ago they were a $1 billion company. And that's impressive because it's a company that's founded 10 years ago by Brad Cook and two other gentlemen with an idea and a lot of experience in their pocket, And their business model was very simple. They wanted to look for opportunities in the mining space where they felt that there is significant upside potential, and they want to bring their expertise and money to the table to get things turned around. And Canarc was, Bradford's first company, founded about 20 years ago, with the goal to advance a gold project from discovery to production. But 10 years ago, Brad decided to, along with Canarc, to fund Endeavour Silver, and the timing of that was very similar to what we are seeing today in the mining space. We were coming off a very sustained lows, more than 2 years lows in the mining space, and with that, a lot of opportunities became available. And that's how Endeavour was started. It was started from acquiring a project that had no resources, but a mill in place. They are still mining there today. They've increased capacity many, many times, and they've added 2 more projects in the meantime. So that's really his business model. And it's important to remember that because Canarc, basically effective January of this year, has publicly said that it wants to repeat the Endeavour business model. So in other words, Canarc has become a very active suitor for projects that have that potential. And we looked around the market, and Santa Fe Gold actually was the first company that Canarc identified. And we wanted to do a transaction with them early in February of 2014. But then the company just announced another transaction with Thai Gold. Unfortunately, we moved away and moved to pursue another transaction in Mexico instead. By the time we dropped the transaction in Mexico, and we did drop it because of the significant due diligence that was done, and things got from bad to worse, so we basically decided to walk away. But the timing of us walking away was good because Santa Fe just dropped the other transaction that they were doing with Thai Gold, because Thai could not raise the money, so Santa Fe had to drop the transaction. So we immediately convened discussion with Santa Fe Gold. Now, looking at the transaction that we structured, it's very interesting to understand why we did what we did. Santa Fe Gold has very, very good assets, a very high-grade gold and silver mine, fully permitted and built in U.S., in the state of New Mexico, a fully built and permitted mill, and it operated up until November 2013. And the company, never been able to achieve production, never be able to achieve targets due to a number of issues, mainly to do with the management of the company and the way they done business. And in that process, while they've done that, they've actually built a lot of losses for the company. The company has recorded losses of an excess of $80 million. And, when you start to do things and turn them around, that become an asset, because what it tells you is that you can actually have tax-free, call it tax-free income for the next $80 million, because you can offset against those losses. So it's important to know that, because Canarc initially wanted to do 100% acquisition of Santa Fe, which would mean, take the whole upside of the company, bringing it to Canarc, bring on the management team, and turn things around. And we started our discussions, but in U.S., if you do that, you basically lose the right to utilize those losses going forward. So, if we were going to do 100% acquisition, we would end up with the assets, but we would have to pay taxes for every profit that we generate. So we moved the discussions from 100% acquisition to a 49% acquisition, whereby we still appoint our management team, we still appoint us to the board level, and we basically are responsible to turn around the company. And the number that we ended up with was 34%, because there is a 3-year look back. So you have to look three years back and sum all those equities they've done. And then,
let me ask you a couple of questions, Catalin. So Santa Fe is a U.S. company, so it's listed on the OTC exchange? Okay, good.
Correct.
And since when are you heading Canarc? How long are you?
So yes, let me answer that question, Michael. So I have been appointed the CEO of Canarc Resources in January of 2014, and the reason for my appointment was very simply to really bring new blood and new energy into Canarc to accomplish this plan of turning around the company and following up the Endeavour business model. Brad Cook, who was the CEO of Canarc Resources, became the chairman of the company in January, and I worked closely with him to basically fulfill this commitment to repeat the Endeavour business model. Canarc, for those that know, it's basically even sharing the same offices with Brad Cook and the Never team. So we have a lot of synergies here. Through the transaction with Santa Fe, I have also been appointed as president and CEO of Santa Fe Gold. And the goal there is very simple. We really want to make sure that we have full control and we can turn around the situation, because really any upside in Santa Fe Gold will have a direct impact on Canarc Resources through our 1/3% ownership. And that's significant because Canarc today is just an exploration company. Post this transaction, Canarc most likely will be able to consolidate on its balance sheet its 1/3 interest in Santa Fe. In other words, it's basically able to bring in the assets and the revenues and all the things that belong to Canarc through the 1/3% ownership, because we have effective control of the company. So, the market does not realize that today because transaction still needs to close and we are in the process of closing it. But as soon as the transaction closes, the revaluation in the Santa Fe stock should in turn reflect in the revaluation of the Canarc shares.
Do you have any timeline when you expect the closing to happen? That would be my first question. And the second question is, you mentioned some, let's say, some problems with the old Santa Fe management in the past.
Sure.
So can you go into details, and is there still some of the old management left with Santa Fe? And if so, what's the reason that they're still on board when they couldn't make the company work?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the transaction has been announced on July the 15th, so about, call it 3 weeks ago. It's a very simple transaction. It's basically a share exchange. Canarc shares are being exchanged in exchange of Santa Fe shares. Very clean, straightforward transaction. The only thing that's subject to is the financing. Santa Fe Gold right now is in the process of completing a $22 million gold bond for 4 years. That's critical because that's the only way that the company could move forward. So the only condition to closing is the financing. We expect that the financing should close before the end of September. We have engaged a group out of US called Euro Pacific Capital. It's a group funded and led by Peter Schiff, who is probably people know Peter Schiff. He's a very well spoken. He's invited at all the shows in the financing world, a big bull on gold. Has wrote a number of books, bestsellers. So he's the leader of Euro Pacific Capital. We have engaged that group to do the financing for Santa Fe. And just as a side note, we do have good success with the Euro Pacific from the past, both through Endeavor and Canarc. So there is a relationship already in place. So that's the only thing that's subject to right now. Now, talking about the old Santa Fe, I think it's a good question. What did go wrong and how we are going to turn it around? So first of all, from our perspective, as soon as we dive into the due diligence, it was very obvious the reasons why it failed, and mainly to do with very poor execution. The company was led by a president and CEO who had absolutely no mining operating experience. Therefore, they've tried to start over the mine with their own people, their own equipment, and they failed big times in that process. They bought, just an example, second-hand junk equipment, never been able to perform. In the last year alone, the turnover rate was more than 400%. They've never been able to achieve targets. They never been able to achieve sustainable production levels, and as a result, they went from debt to more debt to a lot of debt, to the point when in November 2013 they had to shut down the operation. The president and CEO of the Santa Fe Gold has been terminated by the board of the company before we announced the transaction. From the previous management team, the only person that we kept, it's really the person that's a technical person. His name is John White. He is the Director of Technical Services. He was under direct supervision of our new Chief Operating Officer of Santa Fe Gold, who's Gary Biles. And he is actually a very good resource to have, very knowledgeable, but unfortunately was not able to work under the right leadership before. So going forward for Santa Fe, though, we are in the process of hiring a new general manager of the company that is going to report directly to Gary Biles and myself, and then with that, a whole new team there at Santa Fe Gold. There is a lot different, probably everything is different than what used to be at Santa Fe in our restart plans. And I can go into a little bit more details if you want, but we really looked at the Santa Fe Gold from grounds up, and starting from that is really redoing the resource model, because in the mining space you can fix, if you know how to, management issues, people issues, operational issues, but you cannot fix resources, right?
That's
so
right. Yeah.
the first thing that we really needed comfort with was the existing resource, and that's the first thing actually we commissioned. We have announced about 10 days ago a new resource model, which not only confirmed the mine life that's left there, but also increased the mine life by an additional 1 year. So we are very confident in both the existing resource model, but also the upside in the whole district that's still really significant. And that's another very important element that was very attractive for us for Santa Fe Gold.
Okay. Catalin, can I ask a question? Are these real pictures from the mine? This one and this one. So there is a lot of equipment there. What you can use.
Joe, that's partially true, because those are absolutely indeed actual pictures from the mine, from underground, and the second picture is actually from inside the mill. And let me talk a little bit more about the assets here. The mill actually, let me start with the mill. The mill is essentially brand new. It was built in 2011. It's state-of-the-art mill, fully computerized. Everything is automated. It's a 400 tons a day operation, but unfortunately never been able to sustain continuous production because the mine has always not performed. And the reason for not performing is, primarily they have tried to do the mining themselves. So they bought equipment. The equipment failed. The equipment was not in good shape, and they've also tried to run the mine with their own miners, and they didn't know how to do that, so people were always leaving, and a huge turnover. Going forward, though, to avoid those problems, we are planning to use a mining contractor for this operation. And there are significant benefits of going that route. First of all, mining contractors bring their own people, their own equipment, and they are paid based on the tons they pull out of the mine. So if they are directly incentivized to have everything running smoothly, because they only get paid from what gets out of the mine. So we are going to basically do it completely different. We don't need the equipment and the people risk. What we are going to be doing, though, we are going to be hiring our own people on top of the mining contractors, just to make sure that they are on top of things. And as a side note, Gary Bass, who has basically more than 38 years of mine operating experience as general manager, mostly for underground gold and silver mines, has always worked with mining contractors during his career, so he knows how to keep them in tune. Because there are stories in the mining space of mining contractors not performing well. So we have re-engineered the whole mining plan here to use mining contractors, which would reduce significantly the risk associated with running your own people and equipment.
Okay. Just quickly, Joe, I'm not on Skype, just for your information, because I saw that you dropped me some messages, but I can't read them. And Catalin, before we should move forward in the presentation, there's one more question from my side. Who made the final decision to work together with Santa Fe? Was that you, or was that Brad? Or of course, it's always a team approach, right?
Yeah,
but there's always one guy who's saying, "Okay, let's do it." Who was that?
Yeah. Look, I think it was definitely a team approach. Brad was absolutely the leader in that decision, in his role as both the chairman of Canarc Resources, who is the initiator, but more importantly, and this is really important for people to know, Brad Cook became the chairman of Santa Fe Gold effective July 15. So he actually put his name on the line here, and he is now the effective de facto leader at board level of Santa Fe Gold. So if you want to get one name, you probably have a good guess with Brad Cook, but it's a team effort. Brad is working together with myself and the whole team here to make things happen, and I think it's really important to know that.
Yeah, sure. So this is the safe harbor statements. We have to put that into the presentation. You have to make up your own mind. Yeah, we are all not brokers, so make up your own mind before you buy or sell any shares. Okay. If there's parts on this presentation that you already covered in the introduction, then we can just go to the next slide. But it's up to you.
But I have one question, and this is maybe also working. So when every running smoothly, you can produce 25 to 30,000 ounces of gold. Is this
yes,
correct? What we're writing here. So, and the second question is, you coming up, you say, okay, you make a new resource calculation in July.
Yes.
Is there any room for exploration, so that maybe it's going much bigger than you have in?
Absolutely.
In
Let me answer that question, because I think it's an important point that we have probably not covered at the beginning. In order for you mentioned who was the one person that really liked the project, and I said, probably to a large extent is Brad Cook. And for Brad to get excited and for him to be able to repeat the success with Endeavor, you need more than a strong project. You need a lot of upside potential, right? Because, you can have a good start with a good project, but then how do you grow from there? And really, I think beyond the existing structure, which is the project, the mine, and the mill, the most attractive element of Santa Fe Gold to us was the upside potential. And the reason for saying that is that the Summit mine itself is located in the middle of a whole mining district. There is a lot of historical mining all over and around the property. We do have a significant, Santa Fe has a significant land holdings already, and there is significant potential that we've already identified. So, the way that we look at Santa Fe Gold is really a very solid start, but a continuous growth as we move forward with production. Part of our restart plan for Santa Fe Gold is not only to restart production, but as soon as we've done that, we are restarting exploration. With this, those two things will go hand in hand for us, and we have already identified very high and very prolific targets for expansion, both at the Summit mine, which basically sits on a whole district of historic mining, and also the Lordsburg mill sits on a historic district itself. So we are very excited for the potential that the properties surrounding the mine present, and that's really what I think we would see as a company maker, because the goal is here to restart production but also grow from that point. And there is significant upside potential both on the exploration side but also on the mill side. The mill is sitting on a very large property that we own 100%, and there is excess capacity easily available there with very little investment that we can expand the capacity of the mill. So I think we are strategically located both from a mill perspective and also from upside potential for the exploration. How much gold we are going to produce? Well, we expect that as soon as we start production, and if you want to know how soon we can start production, we have a plan in place right now that within 2 months of closing the financing, we will start mining. And that's a very aggressive plan, but it's also a very realistic plan, because we already have the mining contractor on standby and all the mining restart plan is done, all the engineering has been completed, so it allows us to immediately start production. From that point on, within 6 months, we expect to be at full capacity, which is about 400 tons a day. That's not a big number, 400 tons a day. For those people that want to put it in perspective, if you operate on a 24-hour basis, because both the mine and the mill will operate 24/7, it's roughly, call it 20 truck loads within 24 hours that go out of the mine. So every hour you get 1 truck of ore out of the mine. That's a big operation. What really makes a big difference is the grade. It's a very high grade gold and silver mine, about 8.5 ounces of silver per ounce and about 0.13 gold, which in grams, if you want to put it in grams, about 300 grams of silver and about, call it 5 grams of gold. So that's really what makes it very attractive, and also it allows us to keep a low cost of production. We have estimated that our cash cost of production is about $500 to $600 an ounce, and I dare you to compare that with a lot of other mining operations, especially in gold, to find a low run. We're probably going to be one of the lowest cash cost producers. All-in cost, which includes everything, the debt reservicing, the G&A, everything, is about $800 to $900 an ounce. So what that tells you is that if gold is at $900, we are breaking even. So it's a very attractive and very highly leveraged to the gold prices.
Kathleen, one question. You told us before, okay, the reason you don't take over the company is the loss what the company have, and you can
Exactly.
use this in the future. How is really the balance sheet structure? How many debt has the company itself on it?
Sure.
Or was this all
Yeah.
equity what the company put in the past, and now is debt-free, nearly debt-free, and the only reason why you cannot do it is that they cannot handle the production?
Yeah, no, that's a very good point, Joe, and I think it's important for people to know that. So Santa Fe, beyond having very good assets, the company, before we started this transaction, was in a big hole financially. You know, the amount of debts that the company has before the transaction, it's in excess of $30+ million, and a lot of money required to restart. So it was a very tough proposition, call it, right? So you are looking at a company that has more than $30+ million in debt, and you need another 14 or so to restart. So how can you tackle such a big challenge? So from our perspective, we looked at this two ways. You know, we first looked at the resource. I looked, is the resource solid? Can we count on it? The answer was yes. But second, we said, okay, how can we restructure this debt? Because at these levels, it's just not going to work. So there are two main senior secured creditors. One of them is Waterton, and the other one is Sandstorm Gold. And the company was owing to Waterton about $11 million, and Sandstorm was sitting on about $7 million of debt owed to them, plus another $7 million in future NSR. So total of $14 million, plus the 11 is 25, and there were another $5 to $7 million owed to various other creditors. So that's, you know, over $30 million. So we've spent about 2 months to renegotiate very drastically with the creditors, and we have been able to achieve significant concessions from those numbers, and that's what allows us to really have a very profitable mine. And I can give you a quick rundown of those. Let me run to a slide here that shows the situation, because it's very important. This is just showing, you know, what are we going to do with the money we are raising, but it comes in context. So I'm going to start with the fact that we have announced a $22 million gold bond fund, and you know, this is how we spent the money. And once I present this, I'll also touch base on how much we have actually cut back from what the company was owing before. So once we get the $22 million, about $6 million are required to as capex for restart, which is equipment and small things that needs to be fixed. We are budgeting another $6 million as working capital for the first 6 months, because, you know, you start and you ramp up, so you need to support the operation. Another $2 million will be as a healthy contingency, and $3 million will go to Waterton. And it's important to understand how significant of a cut we had here. Santa Fe was owing to Waterton $11 million. Waterton has agreed that in exchange of $3 million upfront payment, to cut it from 11 to $9 million. So they've basically agreed to walk away from $2 million in debt owed to them, and at the end of the $3 million payment, we will owe them $6 million more. And that's really the only thing that's going to be outstanding, and I'll tell you why. So, you know, post the financing, we will owe $22 million to the bondholder, $6 million to Waterton, and essentially nothing else to anybody, and I'll tell you why. Going down the list, there is another $1 million payment to Sandstorm. Sandstorm has agreed that in exchange of $1 million, they basically walk away from the first $7 million in exchange of $1 million, and they've also agreed that they are going to walk away from the other 7, and we've replaced those with a gold delivery. So to align, you know, the transaction with their business model, which is streaming and physical gold, we have agreed to sell Sandstorm, starting with year 2, 350 ounces of gold every quarter for a price of $400, which is roughly our cash cost. The net value, the benefit of that is about $1 million. So Sandstorm will receive in the tune of $1 million from the price difference on gold, for about 5 years. So they are effectively getting, call it $5 million plus $1 million upfront, so significant cut from where we were before. But that's not really an amount owed to them, right? That's an arrangement. So effectively, we have wiped out all the Sandstorm debt as a result of that. We also budget about $2 million to restructure the accounts payable. Because Sandstorm was open to take such a big, call it 50% cut on their amounts due, we have had discussions with the other unsecured creditors, and to most extent they are also taking about 50 cents on a dollar. So there's a $2 million here that will basically clean up the balance sheet and leave us with a clean balance sheet going forward. So if you now look at the company before and after, it's very interesting, because before we started Santa Fe, it's 30 plus million in debt and a lot of money required to restart, call it $14 million. After the financing closes, all we're going to be owing is 22 to the bondholder, 6 million to Waterton, so 28. But the same day we have about 14 million in cash in the bank to restart. So effectively $14 million net debt the day we restart the mine. Call it 28 because 14 is in cash. So the before and after picture is really dramatic here. Before 30 plus in debt plus call it another 14 to restart 44. After a net debt of 14 with a bunch of cash in the bank to restart. So it took us a lot of time to come to these agreements. We have formalized those agreements with all the creditors, the main ones, Sandstorm and Waterton, and they are available for people to look them up under AK filings for Santa Fe Gold in Edgar. So people can actually read those agreements.
Okay, Catalin, that's really a great deal. One question to Sandstorm. Is this deal limited to 5 years, or is this a life of mine deal?
The Sandstorm deal is life of Summit Mine only. Okay, so this is, we're talking about Summit Mine that right now today has a mine life of about 6 years. They get 1 year holiday, so they all get 5 years. So it's limited to the upside of Summit Mine only. Just to give the upside potential to Sandstorm, we basically say, look guys, if we find more ore here at this mine only, you can keep getting your gold. They needed that, right, just to align it with their business model. So I think that was a fair thing for them to ask, and a fair thing for us to grant them. But guaranteed it's only whatever is in the resource right now. After that, if more resources are found in the same mine, we can keep going. But anything beyond the Summit Mine, which is the upside potential that I mentioned earlier in the district, it's not affected by the streaming deal.
Okay. Okay.
Can you get back? I think there was a map in the presentation. One of my questions would be if you can give us some more insight on the whole area. So are there other producing mines around? Are the projects or the properties around owned by, let's say, majors, or are they owned by small public companies, by private gold diggers? So how is it looking there?
Sure. Both assets are located in the state of New Mexico. New Mexico is really a mining state, mining-friendly state in U.S. One of the largest, or probably if not the largest, open-pit copper mine in North America is actually in New Mexico. It's about 80 miles from the property. It's called Morenski Mine. And it's the mine that we have is really within the same district. Within the same district where we are, the Summit Mine, there is about, on the range of about 30 square miles, several dozens of historic mining projects that operated about the 1940s. And there is a lot of data available, both on the past production and also potential for exploration. So that's really an exciting area to be in. Even the property next door to us has mineralization, and we are in discussions with the owners about that. So we are very positive on the upside. It's still blue sky. There is a lot of risk associated with that. But Brad Cook is a geologist by training, and he himself is very positive about the potential in the area. The other project that we own, let me just touch base quickly on that. Santa Fe also owns 2 other projects in New Mexico. One is called the Mogollon project, and the other one is the Ortiz project. Those are more of an early stage development projects, and We have not done enough due diligence on them to consider them material to the company. We feel that the potential in the Summit Mine and the Summit District far outweighs the potential presented by those other projects. But Santa Fe has 2 other projects in its portfolio in New Mexico.
So I always like to look at the big picture. So the big picture for me, and of course that's just speculation, could be that you guys are now, with the restructuring of the debt, you guys are in a good situation with the expertise of yourself, your team, and Brad. You bring the Summit Mine back into production. You can produce tax-free up to 80 million. That's a lot of cash, so you can probably consolidate that area. Is that something where you guys
that's exactly
exactly,
you know, absolutely. I mean, we have absolute plans of consolidating the whole district there, because if you look at the land owners actually in that area, it's essentially mostly controlled by 2 families, and they have the claims from their family, you know, generation and everything. And we have actually met with them. They are very positive about our involvement, and you know, they are also looking forward to see a successful mining operation in their backyard, call it, where they can leverage from, right? And those are groups that don't have the power, the financial power to you know, do mining in their own. But as soon as we get going here with the Summit Mine, I'm sure we'll get a lot of interest, or solicited interest, to look at other properties in the area, which we've already actually started. But if you know anything about Endeavor, you know, and Brad Cook, we want to do everything one step at a time. So the approach here is really start with the Summit Mine, get to full production, get to a solid income and revenue, and grow from there. And that's really our plan for Santa Fe Gold.
And that's a good approach, but still you need some let's say end goal, where you want to be.
Absolutely. And that's why, you know, I mentioned earlier that as soon as we start production, we are also going to start the drills. So, you know, from the moment we start mining, we are also starting looking for more.
Joe?
What is around the cash flow by full production and 400 tons? What is the cash flow what you expect?
Right now, based on the 6-year mine life at today's prices, after we service all the debts that the company has currently and the new one that's going to be incurred, we are going to be left with about $50 million in net profits over the 6-year mine life. So it's a very profitable operation. Because of the fact that over the mine life of 6 years, we will be producing roughly 180,000 ounces of gold payable. That's for any increase in the gold price, let's say $100, you get another $18 million at the bottom line. So very highly leveraged to the gold price. You know, so again, what allows us to get there is really the grade, which is high for this project, and pretty much low cost operation, because it's going to be very efficiently run. The mill itself, it's fully automated and only requires about 6 people per shift to run it. So it's a very efficient operation. And the mine also, because we are going to use the mining contractor, the costs are very well capped. But let me maybe touch base. This is the resource table that was published about 10 days ago. We expect to publish a 43101 full technical report probably by August the 15th, which is the full technical report. That was an important step that we needed to do to ensure that we are confident within the existing resource. So investors could watch for a full technical report to be filed on CDR by middle of August. Quick look at the mine plan. This is just an overview of the existing Summit Mine. The blue lines that you see here are all existing developments, and this is existing tunnels that are already built. The green lines that you see here is the new development that we will be doing. What's very interesting is that all the pink blocks that you see here in the model, this is really all the area that's been mined. Everything else, that's all those shapes that you see there, those are new ore bodies. They have not been touched. So there's very little, call it mining, that has occurred in this mine, but a lot of development, right? If you look at all those blue lines, those are intensive capital costs to make those development, but the company has never been able to actually get most of the ore out. When the mine stopped in November, on the lower right-hand corner here under this front loader, this whole area here represents about 6 to 8 months of ore. It's basically ready to go. Those blue lines are the declines that are already there. So the plan here, and that's how we can actually start mining within 2 months, that we start mining in this area here, and at the same time another crew starts developing the green stopes to go deeper into the mine. So we are basically ready to mine very shortly here, because a lot of development has been already made by the previous team. Unfortunately to them, they have not been able to sustain production. They've done a lot of development, but never really been able to take the ore out, because they didn't have the right people, they didn't have the equipment. So and as a result of that, they run into debt and more debt, to the point where they had to shut down. But we are really in a position to start mining very soon. Quick look at the mill. These are a few pictures from the mill site here. The one at the top is an inside view of the mill. The one at the bottom, it's call it a print screen from the computer. Everything is automated. You can control and monitor everything from the click of a mouse button. So the mill itself is in very good shape. On the right-hand side here, you see a picture of the ball mill outside and the building. There's a lot of capacity, additional capacity that's available there, and relatively inexpensively you can increase the capacity of the mill. The mill is actually located next to the highway. It's a off-paved road connected to the power grid, just outside of a town called Lordsburg in New Mexico. So everybody that works at the mill pretty much lives in the town. So it's a very welcome addition to the community there, because it creates jobs, and we are getting a lot of positive feedback from our restart from the community already.
How far is the mill from the mine?
The mill is about 50 miles away from the mine. And there is trucking costs associated with bringing the ore to the mill. That's all factored in the costs mentioned earlier. The reason why it's still economical to truck it is because it's a high-grade ore. So the costs associated with trucking still make it a very profitable operation. And we actually have two kind of products that we sell. One is a flux product, which is basically crushed ore that's sold directly to the smelters, and the other product, it's a concentrate that's produced through the mill. About 60% of the ore is actually processed through the mill, and 40% is sold as flux. So it gets here at the mill, it's crushed and then sold to the smelters. Smelters love it because it has a high silica content, and they use it for copper, and they actually pay us for the precious metal content in the ore. So the two product feeds actually allow us to make a very good cash flow from the operation.
Right.
I think I touched earlier on the restart plan here, and we can just move on from there. But it's really important to remember that before and after picture on the financing situation. Mogollon project is the other project that Santa Fe has. We have an option on it. We need to make a decision on this project by the end of the year. A significant upside potential, but we will have to see how that fits within our strategic plan of Santa Fe going forward. The other project is a project in New Mexico, has over 1 million ounces of gold. It's called the Ortiz project. So very, very interesting project, but unfortunately, very hard to permit most likely. So we will have to make a decision whether to keep or maybe sell this project in the future.
Could you just go one slide back to the other project?
Sure.
Actually, so you need to pay almost a million towards the end of the year. To keep that in good standing, or is that for the option to acquire?
Basically, if we pay $1 million, we have 100% of the project. So, however, we are in discussions with the owner of the project. and most likely we will be looking to reschedule that payment.
Okay.
It's not within our priorities right now to just pay the $1 million.
Yeah.
There is a better use of $1 million, call it, in the other projects that we have in the summit.
Especially because you said you want to do it like step by step, and this would be a little bit out of the way.
Exactly. So most likely what's going to happen, we'll try to have discussions to extend those options to the project.
What are the chances? If you would
well,
need to bet,
I can
like
tell you
50-50?
as far as we know, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's hard to say for sure, but as far as we know, there's not a lineup of people looking.
Yeah, that was
to
if he does. If Columbus doesn't have an alternative, then they, I guess, they're just agreeing to an extension.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And I think still in the mining space, $1 million goes long ways for a project. So I don't think there is a lineup of people wanting to take over this project. But again, it's not a core project to us. So even if that happens, we have a significant upside in a district that we can advance with instead. Quick look at the, I'm going to skip over this, at the management team. For those that don't know, Brad Cook is
Hi, Brad.
has become the chairman of the board, and he's actually the founder and CEO and director of Endeavor Silver, and the chairman of and founder of Canarc Resource Corp. Very, very successful mining professional, over 36 years experience in the mining industry, and he's really built a very good track record in the space. Through Endeavor mainly, but everything else he's done is really outstanding in the sector. And we are really lucky to have him as our chairman, and he's actually actively involved in a turnaround of Santa Fe Gold. He has,
both Joe and myself, we know Brad personally, and it's always a pleasure to talk to him, get his insights. He's a very, I would almost call him like a British gentleman. Everything's like understatement, really calm. Exactly the contrarian to me. But really a good guy.
Absolutely, and I think we are really fortunate to have him become the chairman of the company, and once he's done that, he's really taken it very seriously, right? He's really full on board and fully behind everything what we are doing today with Santa Fe Gold. So I think it's good to know that he's supporting.
He's a company builder. You know, there's so many. He's really a company builder, one of the few real company builders out there in Vancouver.
Absolutely, and he's a self-made, successful businessman. Worked very hard during his career, and he has built a tremendous track record in the mining space. And through his contacts, I think we can now leverage both our relationship with Euro-Pacific Capital and other investors that may be interested in participating in the Gold Bond Fund that's being run right now by Euro-Pacific Capital. Myself, I have over 20 years experience in the mining, in the business world. About 15 of them actually spent in the mining space. 9 years I spent as a senior mining analyst for a $3 billion investment fund out of Vancouver. In the last 6 years, I decided to go in the corporate side, and as part of a few companies. The first one I worked with, I managed to work with the CEO there, and we pulled together a $150 million deal with a Chinese group for a very large zinc project in Canada. So I had a lot of experience dealing with the Hong Kong markets and mainland China markets. From there, I moved to a silver company, which had a mining production in Mexico, and another one which didn't quite turn out well in US, but through that, I gained a lot of exposure on the operational side, on the mining side. I've been directly involved in all the operational aspects of the company and the corporate development of the company, and that's how I got to know Brad, by us both being in the silver space in the last several years. And Brad actually came to me, and I think that's a good side note for investors to know why did I join Canarc. I had a casual conversation with Brad back in December of last year, and what he has told me, he said, look, Catalin, I think I'm ready to do what I did with Endeavor all over again with Canarc now, because I was so successful in endeavor, and Canarc really is my first company, and I never really had the chance to really have a big breakthrough success with it. We have a great asset in Canada, invested about $30 million during the years, but still it's years from production, so I want to really do something else with the company. I really think that now it's the time, 2014 is the time when there are still opportunities available in the mining space. So he's basically told me, why don't you come on board as the CEO of Canarc? You'll have my full support from the board level, and let's try to find a project that fits the model, and we'll do it all over again. So we started that in January, and Santa Fe, as I said before, was our first priority. We ended up walking away from it because they had another transaction. But here we are back at Santa Fe Gold, and back at our first major transaction for Canarc. Because if you look at Canarc, the investment we made in Santa Fe Gold is really accretive. For going a bit more into details, we have exchanged Canarc shares versus Santa Fe shares at effectively 5 cents US for Santa Fe shares. Since we've done that, the stock is up at 20 cents right now. So effectively, Canarc's investment in Santa Fe has quadrupled already.
Right.
And that's shareholder value. That's building shareholder value. And I think going back over the prior trading. Let me walk you through a slide here because it's really meaningful to what I'm talking about right now. This is a 3-year look back at the share price performance of Santa Fe Gold, and you can see here that not long ago the share price of Santa Fe Gold was more than $1.25. Well, when we were working with Santa Fe Gold, they were trading at 4 to 5 cents. So, of course, we have made a market-based transaction whereby we exchange shares at 5 cents. Since then, as I said before, the shares of Santa Fe are at 20, so 4 times more than what we paid effectively for the company. And we were wondering why did the market react so positively to this? We didn't quite expect it to be that welcome of a transaction. But when you look back over 3 years, you can see why. The company, even with those challenges that they were faced, they were in excess of $1.25. So the fact that the company now has a well-seasoned management team, a team with a track record, and a very robust plan of turning around the company was welcomed by investors of Santa Fe. So the chances are, that as we get things done, the revaluation of the company should continue to occur, and in turn, Canarc's 1/3 ownership of the company should increase in value, and we are basically building value for our Canarc shareholders. And Canarc right now will focus not only on Santa Fe to get it going, but also on the core project that we have in Canada to bring it to the next phase of development. And Canarc may do at some point another strategic transaction similar to what we've done here with Santa Fe Gold. So
what's the market cap of Canarc right now?
The market cap of Canarc is in the range of $15 million, and if you look at our 1/3 ownership in Santa Fe Gold, it's almost 2/3 of our whole market cap. So there's not factored in yet in our share price because it's good reasons why not. The transaction has not closed yet, so the shares have not physically been issued. We are still working on the financing, so there are risks associated with that, and everything is subject to financing. I think we have a good starting plan and a good plan in place, but there are risks associated with that. So I think as soon as those are done, we should expect probably a different valuation for both Canarc and Santa Fe going forward.
Let me ask another question. If one of your closest old childhood friends comes to you and says like, "Hey, big buddy, I have 10 grand left which I want to invest," would you tell him to invest into Santa Fe, or would you like to tell him to invest into Canarc?
That's a very good question, because we actually get that question a lot from people. Like, which one is a better investment? Is it Santa Fe Gold or is it Canarc, right? Because of the fact that Canarc really is not reflecting any of the Santa Fe value. To be fair with my friend and to be fair with the investor, I would tell them, look, there's still risks on the table. We are working on this financing. We have a very robust plan here, a very good arrangement in place. We think we have it turned around, but wait until the financing closes. You probably end up paying more for the stock, but you are in a safer grounds at that stage. So that's probably what I will tell them. I say, look, just watch us, do whatever you want to do. As soon as things are really going forward here with the financing close, then maybe I could say, yeah, if you want 10,000 to put it. I think you probably will be making a good decision here. But again, mining, it's all subject to risks, like
always.
Well.
Right. But all business is subject to risk. Yeah, it's not only
absolutely,
mining, yeah?
Absolutely.
Especially mining. But hey.
Exactly, and I think that's also important to understand that the way that we run, and the way I run the company is really it's a business. We have to make profits for our shareholders. We have to be profitable, economical, and after all, being it a mining, being it a manufacturing, shoe business, whatever it is, the first thing is you have to run the business, and you have to know how to do that, and then you have to do it with the profits in mind and low costs in mind and efficiency in mind, and that's the first thing that makes, I think, any company, especially a mining company, successful. And then you surround yourself with the people that are very experienced in the space, such as Brad Cook, and then the other person I didn't mention is Gary Biles, who's the Chief Operating Officer of the company, a guy that's got years and years of experience, and a new general manager that will be very very experienced, hopefully. So that's how you make a successful company.
Yeah, but right now, I think in the whole sector, mining sector, resource sector, the valuations of the companies are so ridiculously low. Yeah, absolutely. All over. If you compare that to two guys that developed an app for Android or iPhone, and they are taken over for like 5 billion. Yeah, so where's the value there? So I just don't get it. So this is why myself, I agree. We are mining guys, or we are not mining guys, but we are investing into resources, yeah, on the physical end, but also, of course, in interesting stories.
Kathleen, one question. Michael, do the other one. What is the better investment? But you said for Canarc it's really hard that you find out what is the real value of Santa Fe Gold, and you have only shares of the company. So. Yes. Is there a plan in Santa Fe that's everything running smoothly, and maybe in 1 or 2 years you give to the shareholders a dividend? So then you get Canarc also get money from the Santa Fe.
Yes. Look, I think it's a bit premature to say yes, definitely. What I can tell you though is that we are very mindful, and we know that there are very few mining stocks that pay a dividend. And those few mining stocks that actually do pay a dividend, they get very good valuations as a result, right? The investors really love them. Because of the fact that this is a highly leveraged to the gold price project, if gold really does what we think it's going to do here, move higher over the next few months and years, it's a very real chance that Santa Fe Gold will start paying a dividend. And once that happens, really Canarc will start having, call it revenues from or earnings from those dividends. Sure. But more importantly, one thing that I mentioned earlier, and maybe I want to repeat here, is that we have actually checked with the auditors, and because of the fact that we have effective control of Santa Fe Gold, so we are 1/3 owner, we own the management team, and we have 2 out of the 3 board members, and there is also a shareholder agreement between the 2, which states that as long as the debt is outstanding, Canarc management team should always be nominated by the board as the management of Santa Fe. Because of all those combined, most likely we can actually consolidate our 1/3 interest in Santa Fe on the Canarc balance sheet. So what that does, it will show Canarc having actual revenues through the 1/3 ownership. It's not really cash coming in unless we do a dividend, but from a balance sheet perspective, that should be much stronger company going forward.
Okay. But in the end, you live when you get really cash come in from the Canarc side.
Exactly, and it's again, it's early to say definitely yes. I can tell you that we have, or I have considered that, and it's probably something realistically possible at some point here.
Yeah, for sure. If you find another big gold mine there, and you need the cash for the other one, then it's for sure you need the cash for the new project. But
Okay.
and it's also for sure is depends from the gold price. Yeah, it's clear.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
So I'm not sure, did we already run through the whole presentation? Are there slides
Yeah, I
left
think,
which you want to touch on?
One thing, we just finished up with the management team here. Gary Bias, who I mentioned a few times already, professional engineer, more than 38 years experience. 16 years he was general manager of 4 producing mines, so he has hands-on experience. Before he joined Canarc, he was actually general manager of a very high-grade mine in North America, and Brad grabbed him on board to build New Polaris, which is our asset in Canada, and that never really got to production. So Gary is really eager to get back into production, lots of experience, and he is now looking to hire a general manager for Santa Fe Gold, who report directly to him, and then Gary reports to myself. So that's really the team there that's going to run the mine. Those are the 2 people that we kept from the previous management team. John White, he's now Director of Technical Services, a very good technical guy, very hard-working guy, very good individual. He's been very helpful for us right now and works closely with Gary and myself to get the new mine plan going and get us soon into production. And Curtis Floyd, he's the mill manager there, a bright young fellow. Poor guy never really had the chance to run the mill continuously because the mine never really delivered the ore that he needed. But nevertheless, a very experienced and somebody that we decided to keep there. On top of those, we'll hire more people as we get going here.
Catalin, one last question from my side. Santa Fe Gold is listed on the OTC, I think.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
Is there any ideas to grade the stock up to a real stock exchange? Or
Absolutely. I mean, look, that's a very good question. I'm glad you brought it up, Joe, because Canarc, on the contrary, right, it's a full TSX major board listing, and you have a over-the-counter company here, so it doesn't fit well. I can tell you for sure that as soon as the financing closes, we have already a plan in place with Euro Pacific Capital to move it to QX in US, which is a more senior exchange, and from there, as the company grows, move it to TSX main board and probably New York Stock Exchange as the time goes by and the company grows. So definitely, we have a plan in place to move the trading to a more senior platform.
Okay. Yeah, and is this presentation available for download on your website?
Yes, so
it is? Okay.
It is available for download on the website. People just go on the Santa Fe Gold Corp website. It's available there. People can also listen to the conference call that we held about 3 weeks ago when we announced the transaction.
Right.
And if any questions, we are always here to answer them, and we welcome people's feedback.
Yeah. This is why I didn't find the presentation, because I was on the Canarc website and it wasn't available there.
Yeah, no, it's actually Santa Fe Gold, because those,
right.
Even though they are kind of related, they are 2 different separate.
Yeah, right, I understand it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Joe, any final question?
No.
Okay, so Catalin, thank you very much. That was a really good insight, on this kind of complicated transaction, but also like where you want to go with both companies. Canarc being one of the having a leverage, with the investment into Santa Fe, and you are going to restructure together with Brad Sepp, going to restructure Santa Fe, bring it into production. Big picture is consolidating that area. So Santa Fe is going to move up to a more respected exchange. So from my end, good luck with all your endeavors. And I hope that we can touch base with you again, maybe a little while after the transaction really has closed.
Absolutely.
That you can give us an update. And in the meantime, I will of course inform my readers about any developments. And so the stage is yours for the famous last words. So
sure. Look, I think I really welcome the discussion with both Michael and Joe here. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I think we've known each other for a number of years now, and I like what you guys are doing there. It's always a pleasure to have a chance to tell the story to investors, and I always encourage everyone to just pick up the phone or send us an email. I tend to take all the calls that I get and personally reply to investors' emails on a timely manner. So if at any point you want more information, or you want a clarification, or you just want to say hello, please feel free to say so.
Okay. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ja, das war jetzt eine sehr interessante Präsentation von Catalin. Den Nachnamen kann ich ja nach wie vor nicht aussprechen. Habe dasselbe Problem wie der Kollege Adams. Interessanter Deal. Bin mir noch nicht ganz sicher, was die bessere Aktie ist, Canarc oder die Santa Fe Gold. Die Santa Fe Gold hat nämlich auch seinen Reiz, vor allem dass wirklich die Restrukturierung der Schulden so dramatisch ist und vor allem diese 80 Millionen, die Verlustvortrag da sind, die sind natürlich einiges wert. Und ja, von daher muss man ehrlich sagen, sind beide Company sehr interessant. Schade ist, dass die Santa Fe leider an der OTC notiert. OTC ist einfach ein Problem. Ja, aber ich muss ehrlich sagen, man muss dazu sagen, die Santa Fe notiert auch in Berlin und in Stuttgart. Und ja, das ist schon eine spannende Sache, und ich bin echt froh, dass wir eigentlich so gut vernetzt sind, weil sonst würde die Story eigentlich total an uns vorbeigehen, und hier könnte sich wirklich was Gutes zusammenbauen. Denn, lassen Sie ihn ja von der Präsentation, wann da drinnen steht, nicht täuschen. Wir sprechen hier ja nicht von Gramm, sondern von Unzen pro Tonne. Und wie er schon sagt, es sind ungefähr 5 Gramm pro Tonne. Mein Life 6 Jahre. Es wird umgerechnet ungefähr, wenn man diesen Zahlen trauen kann, erwarten Sie, das ist hier, circa 25.000 bis 30.000 Unzen Gold-Äquivalent, und erwartet für die ganze Lifetime 50 Millionen Nettoertrag. So, das ist aber nicht das Einzige, sondern wenn jetzt der Goldpreis steigt, dann wirken sich ungefähr $100 mit ungefähr 18 Millionen mehr Ertrag aus. Und wenn man das jetzt wiederum berücksichtigt und sagt, okay, wir steigen um $300-400 pro Unze, dann Dollar pro Unze Gold, dann wäre das natürlich ein Riesenhebel. Dass Sie das Potenzial haben, dass Sie die Aktie nach vorne bringen oder die Produktion so machen, dass sie auch effizient läuft, davon gehe ich aus. Das haben Sie auch schon bewiesen. Bradford Cook tut mit seiner Endeavor ja einige Minen betreiben in Mexiko, also hat er das Know-how und hat notfalls auch die Leute, die diese Probleme aus dem Weg räumen, und von daher bin ich eigentlich sehr zuversichtlich. Schauen Sie nur die Aktie an, wir bleiben am Ball, und ja, wir werden auf jeden Fall die Aktie weiter verfolgen. Das war's von meiner Seite, und ich wünsche Ihnen noch einen schönen Tag bzw. einen schönen Abend. Tschüss.